Hey, what's up, guys? It's Renaldo here. So, how do I even begin to tell this story? All right, let's start with what you might know. Do you remember last year, July 2024, this big story came out over mainstream media about these 12 white students at the Pretoria High School for Girls that were sending racist messages towards each other, and all media jumped on it, and then these 12 students were suspended. And then they investigated the WhatsApp groups. Then they had interviews with the 12 students. And ultimately what they found was that there was no racism. And in August of 2024, these students were cleared of any wrongdoing. And in that time also, remember, right after the news broke, the EFF went to the school and then ended up singing "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer" outside the school with some students. Yeah. Now, the irony here is that these 12 students that weren't found guilty of any wrongdoing had to go through all of that, and the Daily Maverick even had to apologize to these students for the way in which they reported, but yet nothing was said about the black students that were singing "Kill the Boer, Kill the Farmer" outside of the school, because that's completely acceptable. Anyway, this WhatsApp group actually found that these white students were complaining about how they were being treated and how they were being race baited by fellow students. And of course, because this wasn't the outcome that the Gauteng MEC for Education was looking for, they just suddenly decided that they were going to do an investigation into the school of this culture of racism, even though the WhatsApps were clearly not racist. And the finding was that there was no wrongdoing from the students. The MEC decided, no, this isn't good enough. We now clearly need to do something. And then they got a individual to do an investigation, a Mr. Mdladlamba. And he took 95 days, did a thorough investigation, and then he came out with a report that is not being made public to anybody. And the main focus of this investigation was to tackle the principal. And her name, of course, is Philippa Erasmus. Now, what they have found is they have found her guilty. Listen to this. So, it all started with the WhatsApps, right? And racism. And then they couldn't get her on racism. So what they then eventually did is they looked through everything to find some fault so that they can just look like they're not absolute idiots for a 95-day investigation and allegedly 500,000 Rand being given to this investigator to do this investigation. And then ultimately what they found her guilty of is that she allowed her husband to do the garden for the school at his own cost. So if I just get it right, she was found guilty of allowing her husband to assist with maintaining the school gardens without compensation. That's right. And the thing that nailed her in this case is that he was allowed to use the school vehicle to go and buy equipment at his own expense for the school to maintain the garden. That's right. And you want to see how the gardens look? Get ready for this. This is unacceptable. Bam! That's right. How dare school have beautiful gardens like this? Look at that. No expense to the school. But how dare the principal ask her husband to come and help for free? Not even for free. It cost them money. But hey, the Gauteng MEC for Education got what they wanted. They managed to get a... I mean, this is so absurd. They found her guilty of letting her husband look after the beautiful gardens at the school at his own expense. It didn't cost the school 1 cent. But because he used the school vehicle to go and buy equipment at his own expense for the school. No. No. We're not going to allow that type of nepotism at this school. How dare you? How dare you do that? But anyway, there was a brilliant piece written about this entire story by Richard Wilkinson on Biz News, and I will link the entire article in the description below because there's just so many moving parts to this story, and the background is just mind-blowing. But what I wanted to focus on was just this portion over here. Now, acting on the basis of Mr. Mdladlama's still unpublished report, the Gauteng Department of Education charged Mrs. Erasmus with 3 counts of misconduct. The disciplinary hearing was presided over by a man identified as Mr. V. Pepignani. The first allegation concerned the now infamous WhatsApp group that sparked the original scandal, but she was obviously found not guilty of that. So if not racism, then what exactly was Mrs. Erasmus found guilty of? The second allegation concerned the appointment of the school's finance manager, if it was claimed that the position was not properly advertised and that accordingly, the appointment contravened the school's selection and recruitment policy. But yet nobody has complained over the finance manager not incompetent, doing the work that is supposed to be done. Anyway, the third allegation is arguably the most absurd of all. It concerns the voluntary actions of Mr. Erasmus, the principal's husband, who at no cost to the school assisted with garden maintenance. This arrangement was approved by the school governing body as recorded in its 2019 meeting minutes. So the school governing body was aware of this. Nevertheless, Mr. Pepignani found that Mrs. Erasmus had allowed her husband to improperly supervise gardening staff and that this might create the impression of nepotism or favoritism. Precisely how Mr. Erasmus benefits from pruning roses in a voluntary capacity remains a mystery. That's right. So that is what the MEC in Gauteng for education is focusing all their attention on Philippa Erasmus, the principal of the school, allowing her husband to prune the roses at his own expense. This is what they spent 95 days investigating on, and 500,000 Rand allegedly that is now going to the investigator. Now what's really important in all of this is this document, this investigation and the outcomes is not available to the school, is not available to anybody except the Department of Education. And just to further illustrate that point, have a look at what was actually written here. So the question is, what acts of racism had these individuals supposedly committed? It is impossible to say because Mr. Ndlatlama's refused to release his report, and the remarks which he delivered at the press conference were vague and cryptic. In any event, it became increasingly clear that Mr. Ndlatlama had shifted his focus, effectively abandoning his original mandate to investigate the school's alleged culture of racism and instead pursuing allegations of misgovernance and maladministration. So the school governing body requested a copy of the report from the Gauteng Department of Education, and inexplicably they were instructed to file a request under the Promotion Acts of Access to Information Act, so a PIA application. They complied only for their application to be rejected on spurious and plainly irrational grounds. So this investigation was done, and there were findings, and when the school asked, can we please have a copy of that entire report, it said no. And then when they lodged in the PIA application, they were refused. So, in summary, big WhatsApp group exploded of racism, media jumped on it, eventually found no racism, and the principal didn't do anything wrong, and then the MEC for Education in Gauteng wasn't happy with that, so then did an investigation into the culture of racism, and then they found nothing, and then the investigator went above his mandate and started looking in other places, and the worst that they could find is that she allows her husband to prune the roses and make it look nice on school grounds at no cost to anybody but themselves. That's right. That's right. So, what exactly is the problem here? Because if you go to some government schools around this country, you will find that there are teachers that aren't in class. You will find that there are pupils that don't attend school for weeks, if months on end. You will find corruption. You will find so many things wrong at various government schools. But this is the important one. This is the one we need to focus on. This guy that thinks that he can prune roses without getting approval from the education department of Gauteng. How dare you? And this is what's wrong with South Africa. I honestly just don't understand how this makes any sense. It is absolutely absurd. And the fact that mainstream media jumped on all of this and now are still reporting on these things as if it's newsworthy. In actual fact, Mrs. Erasmus should just take the MEC for Education in Gauteng to court and just like go for broke. Because it's so clear that there is this hidden agenda by the MEC of Education in Gauteng to go after Mrs. Erasmus and trying so hard to find racism. And when they couldn't find racism, now they're going after whatever they can. It is sickening. But this is just, once again, a clear indication of the South Africa that we live in. You know, if you're white, that ain't right. That ain't right. It needs to change. But nobody will focus on all the schools in this country that are falling apart, whether it be students that don't pitch for class and there's no consequences, teachers being drunk or high at school or not pitching for work, classes collapsing in on itself because of no maintenance, some schools not having access to electricity or running water. The lists are endless. But yet, they've got money to spend on things like this, where they can drop 500,000 Rand, allegedly, for this investigator to do the investigation. What the fuck is wrong with South Africa? I don't know. But please be sure to go and read the full article that was posted, of course, by none other than Richard Wilkinson, and that will be in the description below. Thank you so much for watching. Please be sure to smash the like button. Please be sure to subscribe. And if you are subscribed, hit that bell icon so you can be notified of my future uploads. Also, please be sure to share this video far and wide. And lastly, if you enjoy my content and you enjoy this channel, then please consider becoming a member. You can do so by clicking the join button below. And that's pretty much all I got to say. Till later. Cheers and peace out.
You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre. My massacre. You don't even know me, but every time you see me, you say I went my massacre. My massacre.